Yes, on the dot. All right, family, thank you so much for today. I really appreciate, all of you, especially my special guest for coming to Grace Diana's Diary platform this afternoon. The weather is very great here today. I'm so lucky. I don't have to do it inside. I need to come out and enjoy the fresh air. So without wasting my time, I'm so honored. I'm so privileged that when this topic came in mind, I was just, thinking and praying that Professor Laye will say yes to this topic. And I gave him 3. And by God's grace, he just saw the topic and he was like, Diana, I'm doing that one. I'm doing the AI and the future for the youth, because by God's grace, he wears so many caps. He's a reverend, okay? And he is in charge of the youth. So anything to do with youth, he's so keen about it. He's so passionate about it. When I did tell him about my dream of supporting people, especially with the youth, he didn't hesitate and he just encouraged me. And these are some of the people that we need in our lives. So without much ado, Professor Laye, God bless you. The platform is yours. Thank you for honoring my invitation.
Thank you so much, Lady Diana. And again, welcome to everybody who's listening. This is a global show. Running all across the world, and so we're grateful for the opportunity to be on here. I guess obviously you have a few questions to ask me. I'll do a sort of a very brief talk about AI, probably be about 5 or 10 minutes. I don't think I'll be sharing hopefully I don't think I'll be sharing a lot that people are not necessarily aware of, but I want to come at this from a standpoint of raising awareness amongst young people about the challenges but also the opportunities of AI, and how you need to position yourself as a young person to benefit from this new technology that's happening all around us. And so that's where I think the conversation is best set to provide the best benefit for everybody who is online and who is watching now. Right, this conversation is about you, it's about your future, and it's about what you need to do to position yourself to be able to benefit from this technology, to make sure that you are in a better socioeconomic standing, to make sure that your professional life in terms of your job is secure, and to also ensure that you can take care of your family. Right, the future belongs to those who are willing to seize the opportunities that technology presents. The future also belongs to those who are aware enough of the challenges and some of the issues that come up with every bit of human progress. If you're quote unquote asleep in this moment, and by asleep I mean not so much aware of what is going on, you will be overtaken by events, right? As a result of what's happening with AI, and of course that would not necessarily be a good thing for your own future outlook. So that is the angle that I'm coming sort of at this with, and I hope, and of course indeed it is my prayer as well, that everybody online will benefit from this. So the first thing to say about AI is that it is
Prof, please, can I
yes.
Here, with Diana's Diary, you are new to us. We will always love for you to share a bit of your journey.
I see.
Especially how your age is, to say it. Everybody marrying you on the flyer. We've seen you done, plastic Zoom live. We've seen you on the television and everything. So most of them are like, how did he get there? How he become a professor this young, and he's all over, helping and supporting. And I know you wear so many caps. So can you tell us a bit of your growing up.
Yes, thank you very much, Lady Diana. I was born in Ghana. I grew up in Ghana. I was born in Accra, but most of my early years were spent in the eastern region in Ghana, where my family, my dad worked, and we lived mostly in the eastern region before coming back to Accra. Sort of when I had finished my secondary school education, etc. Of course, I'm not one that was born with a silver spoon in the mouth. We had to. We had things that by God's grace were blessings to us. We had opportunities to go to school, opportunities to to learn, but we had challenges as well, which of course made life undulating, right? So it made things quite difficult for us at times. I mean, I went through school, primary education, secondary school in the eastern region, as well. I went to Akosomo International, not by means of wealth, but by means of God's grace and divine providence. Just because at the time we lived in that area, in the area of that school, and my dad happened to work for the Volta River Authority, so it made things a bit easier for us. When you often mention Akosomo International, everyone thinks it's a Dadabi school. It is not a Dadabi school. At least now it is. Now it is a Dadabi school. When I was there, trust me, it was not a Dadabi school, right? But now they charge in dollars and what not. So it's very different now. But if I was young now, I would not have been able to attend that school, right? So it tells you, the fact that it's just a matter of divine providence, that I ended up there. And I'm really grateful to God for my time there. I was there for a very long time, because again, like I said, my dad worked in the area. And that school was so fundamental, to my growing up. That is where I met Christ. I gave my life to Christ when I was 16 years old, for the first time. It really shaped me. It really formed me. I learned a lot there, not just about myself, but about my abilities, and also my journey in God really started there. And then from there, I went on to university in Ghana. I attended Valley View University just because they had a program there where they were doing something there that other universities were not doing. And I also, sorry?
I know Valley View.
Yes. And I also liked how sort of out of country it was, in the countryside in Ghana, close to Dodoa, etc. I'm very sort of how should I say, partial to quiet places, and I like being in quiet spaces as well. So University of Ghana was much too loud for me. Kumasi was way too far.
Right.
Cape Coast was also much too far, and besides, like I said, the way the manner in which they were delivering the program at Valley View University was appealing for me, and they also had a very sort of Christian ethos, to it, in terms of the way life was there, which I thought gelled very well with where I was in my own journey. So on that basis, I decided to attend that. And when I finished there, I, by good grace of God, had the opportunity by means of scholarship to come to the UK to come and study, attain further qualifications, which ended up with a PhD. By the good grace of God, currently I'm a professor at Aston University, where I work and teach and do research. And my research area is mainly within the throes of sustainability and sustainable development law. And by God's grace, obviously, I've had the opportunity to do quite a bit of work internationally as well. And my story is a long story. We'll be here until the cows come home if I start talking about my story and my challenges. But in sharing the story, in talking about sort of my own journey, I always say to people, don't write yourself off, and don't write anybody off, because at the end of the day, God is the one who ultimately determines and decides what happens in our lives. Of course, we have a huge role to play, and all of us have something to do to get to where God has ordained and destined us to be. But ultimately, even in all of your doing, keep at the back of your mind that the person who wrote your story is the one who will bring it to fruition in the way that they wrote it. All you need to do is to position yourself properly, to cooperate, right, with that person, and to make sure that you're doing the right things at the right time. You won't be perfect all the time. None of us are. This is one of the facts of life, that we are all human beings. We are all very, very fallible. We make mistakes. The question in life often is not whether you will make mistakes. The question is, what will you do after you've made a mistake? Will you continue in the mistake, or will you learn from the mistake and move on, right? Appeal to a better sense of yourself and move on to become a version of yourself that you can be, right? We are always more than what we see. And I say this to young people a lot, and this is what I mean by that. There is always a bigger, better version of yourself in waiting, right? In waiting, and if you're thinking about what I'm saying, and you're saying, well, I don't quite get that. Just think about how you were and where you were 20 years ago, right? You would find that you are a much better person, a much wiser person than you were 20 years ago. You're in a much more favorable position, or at least you should be, in a much more favorable position now. There are things that you're doing now that you weren't doing 20 years ago. Why? Because over the last 20 years, you have acquired knowledge, you have acquired wisdom, you have acquired certain skills, you have improved in a vast many areas. The version of yourself that you are now existed in God 20 years ago, but you hadn't seen it yet, right? So because you hadn't encountered that version of yourself yet, you didn't know that it existed, but it was there. Yes, and so never write yourself off. Whenever I speak about this, and I'll say this final thing, and then obviously we can move on. Whenever I speak about this, I use my example in law school, as a testimony, but also as an example. So when I first came to the UK for law school, yes, I found myself in a situation where, under the educational system in Ghana, you are taught to memorize information, right? So you are taught to memorize information so that you can reproduce it at exam. So you go into an exam, and yes, exactly. And the questions in the paper are: define a tree, right? Define osmosis, define photosynthesis, draw a map of Ghana, draw a map of Africa, right? That's what our educational system does. Chew and pour, as I can see someone in the comment is saying. Exactly, right? Chew, pour, forget. And that is what our educational system does. Our educational system is very good at teaching us how to memorize information, right? But that's not a good thing, right? Because we are lacking in the essential aspect of knowledge and of applying oneself, which is how you take the knowledge, what you have learned, and apply it to an actual situation to solve a problem, right? Our educational system does not teach us how to solve problems. using knowledge and information. Now, unfortunately for me, when I came into the UK, I discovered very quickly that the educational system here is designed to do the opposite of what the educational system in Ghana was designed to do. So here, they don't actually care about you memorizing information. Not so much, right? It's important, but not so much. What they care most about is how you use that information to actually solve a problem.
Exactly.
And all my life, I'd never been taught how to do that. So when I came into the UK, I struggled. And I had to learn very, very quickly. And I remember we were giving an assignment, and we had a few exams coming up, my first year in law school. And, I determined that I was going to do well. I spent a lot of hours studying, etc. But I also spent a lot of hours practicing how to apply information. And I got to a point where I was so frustrated because law school in the UK is different, I find, to other places, because they load you with so much. You've got so much work to do. We were reading about 20 cases a week, and each case can be between 100 and 150 pages.
Hey!
Right? And you're supposed to read that in a week.
Wow.
Yes. So, I attended University of Southampton, right? There may be a few sort of lawyers who are, who are here, who may understand, and have a similar experience. But it was very tough back then, and I thank God that I had the opportunity to be there at that university, but it's very tough. Even now, we don't have students do that. But back then it was very, very tough. And I remember that, all through this, God gave me the strength to be able to go through it and to, do all the things I needed to do. And I remember we had an exam, and by the grace of God, I had a first class in that exam. And we were asked, if you had a first class or if you failed the exam, you have to go and see your personal tutor. So I went to see my personal tutor, and she was like, "Oh, congratulations, you had a first class. You did very, very well. You had one of the top grades in the class." And I said to her, "Thank you, but I'm not so happy about what you guys are making us do." And she said, "What do you mean by that?" And I said, "Well, you give us 20 cases to read per week, which is between 100 and 150 pages, right? On top of that, we have to prepare briefs for our weekly seminars, and on top of that, we have to work because we have to get money to pay for things that we need to pay for, and on top of that, there's everything else that you have to do." So I said to her, "You do realize that you're making us do something that we can't do?" And that's the question that I asked her, and her answer will stay with me forever. Right? The answer that she provided me will stay with me forever. And it was an eye-opener. It was a defining moment. After I had said all those things to her, she looked at me and she said, "But you did it anyway, didn't you?" Right? And in that moment, it hit me that yes, it was tough. Yes, it was difficult. But God had put something in me which made it possible for me to be able to do it. Right? So that's why I always say to young people that, look, no matter the challenges that exist, keep in mind that God has always put something in you. You have it in you to ride above and to go beyond the things that you see are your limitations. So I hope that encourages someone today.
Professor, thank you so much. Someone just called in. I'm using the phone. Forgive me, everyone. Whilst I'm enjoying such, is it biography or history about you?
Yeah, well, it's just a story. I prefer to refer to it as a story. Yeah, a story of God's grace.
One thing I think I've taken from your story is resilience. And I respect you so much. I hope that the youth will take something from your story. And I thank God for your life. And I thank God that you are Ghanaian and you are making us proud. Okay? No offense, Nigerians whatsoever, wide English. I'm so happy that it's one of our own from Ghana. I'm so happy. Now we can just start with our topic, which is AI, the future for our youth. How should a youth prepare with this AI, artificial intelligence, that all these robots are coming in the way whatsoever? Please kindly share this with me. Kindly invite somebody to come and learn with us, because trust me, there's a lot of knowledge we are going to get for free today, and I want you to share this link that you have with whoever is close to you, to a loved one. You can't miss this opportunity. Okay, so kindly share, like, and put in your comment as he talks, because he hasn't got time. He's still got somewhere to go. He says just an hour and we are done. So unless the grace fall on us today, so please, as he talks and there's something that baffles your mind, put it in the comment section, and after, I'll just read all the comments and your contributions to him. And if you want to come in, just invite yourself after he's done, and I'll let you hop on to ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lady Diana. So I think AI is very topical, right? Wherever you look, it's a conversation that is being had. I just, by the grace of God, returned a couple of days ago from Brazil, where we were at the World Circular Economy Forum, where I was delivering some research activities for the United Nations. And even in those circles, artificial intelligence is a topical conversation. And when you look at the history of human development, there are different periods where we have new technologies that come up, and those new technologies always have a disruptive effect. So if you look back, 100, 200, 300, several centuries, you always see that trend, right? So of course we had the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, which brought about a disruptive impact or disruptive effect. Similarly, if you go back before the Industrial Revolution, we had the advent of the printing press, which allowed us to communicate and to be able to store knowledge in books, right? That also had a disruptive effect, albeit that there were some opportunities associated with it. And then, of course, in the modern era, particularly post-World War II, we've had several technologies, right? The computer is one of such technologies, right? Had a disruptive effect, but with lots of opportunities as well. In 1994, the internet broke out, starting mainly in the United States, and that became a technology that shaped the way we live, the way we do work, the way we communicate, etc. And then, of course, we had the advent of social media a few years back, which also shaped the way we do things, and is continuing to do so, right? This particular conversation that we're having is mainly as a result of that. And now we have AI, which is going to have a revolutionary effect across several years. I think by the time we're done in this century, AI would have changed completely the way human beings, not just the way we live necessarily from a social point of view, but it would completely change our economies and the way we operate in the marketplace. And so I think for young people, what we need to start doing is we need to start looking at our individual skills. We need to start looking at our individual engagement and how we engage in the marketplace, and ask yourself, I say to young people, look, you've got to start asking yourself now a very simple question. Is the job that I do the kind of job that can easily be replaced by artificial intelligence tomorrow? You need to ask yourself that question now. because the time is coming when artificial intelligence, and it's happening already, when artificial intelligence is going to start doing a lot of the tasks that are done now in the economy, which means that people will unfortunately lose their jobs. Let me give you a simple example of that. In Holland, I remember I visited Holland, a few years back, and I saw something that really took me by surprise. In one of the cities in Holland where I visited, I noticed that the bins are self-emptying. What that means is that in this city called Almere, where my wife is from, they have these series of bins where obviously you put your rubbish in the bin, and the bins are connected to a channel of pipes underground, and a whole system has been built so that the bin can empty itself without any human intervention, right? So nobody has to go and collect the bin, right? So if you're walking on the street and you're next to these bins, you find that you'll find that on occasion they will shake, and then you hear a vacuum sound, right? That means that the rubbish is being sucked out of the bin, and then you hear a few other sounds, and before you know it, the bin liner has been replaced. And all of that is happening 24/7 without any human intervention whatsoever. And there's an AI system behind and underpinning all of that is tracking the movement of the rubbish, sorting out the rubbish in the underground depots that they've created, making sure that all the different bits are going where they're supposed to go. And of course, when I saw that, and as I did a bit more research into that, I said to myself, wow, 5 years ago, that was someone's job, right? 5 years ago, that was someone's job. It was someone's job to go and take out the bin and to, sort of empty the bin, put in a bin liner, etc., etc. That job is gone, right? And that is the effect of AI, and technology generally is going to replace a lot of jobs. So as young people, we really need to ask ourselves, right? Okay, is the job that I'm doing now the sort of job that can easily be replaced by AI in the next few years? If the answer to that question is yes, then it means that you have to upskill yourself to get into a kind of job that cannot be easily replaced by AI. So the professional level jobs, are ones where it's slightly difficult for AI to sort of to play a significant role in those areas. Although I admit AI is going to be able to play a supporting role, right? But technology is not going to be able to take over completely. So when you look at what ChatGPT does at the moment, it can provide a supporting role for many jobs in professional circles, right? Administrative roles, jobs in healthcare, jobs in law, etc., etc. It can provide a supporting role. However, it can't take over completely yet. Okay, it can't take over completely yet, and the outlook for AI in those areas is to allow for it to be able to support our efficiency, right? Help us to do the same job in half the time, meaning that we can do more work, right? And to be able to ensure that work that is done is accurate and efficient and timely, right? But in the professional circles, it can't take over yet. So we're not looking at a situation in the next few years where you go to the hospital and you go to see an AI sort of tool, and the AI is sitting there, and the doctor has been fired, right? Okay, and the AI is just doing everything. We're not there yet, and we won't be there for quite a while, right? There will come a time when that happens, within this century, but it will take quite a long time. So AI is being used for the kind of roles, right? Okay, so for example, if you are in an administrative role now, and maybe, if you think about the secretaries of old, The secretaries of old, that's our fathers used to have them. You go to your father's office and there's a secretary there. The secretary answers calls. The secretary sets meetings. The secretary types letters. AI can do all of that now, right? Okay, I can have an AI do my whole calendar for me now, right? I don't need a secretary for that. I can have an artificial intelligence write me letters, right? Okay, I don't necessarily need someone to do that for me now, right? So if you are in that kind of role, right, in the next few years, you'll find that because AI gets better and better and better, there will be less and less and less and less need for people in those roles. It means that you need to start thinking about how you upskill now into a professional role where you're doing something, right, that artificial intelligence can't do as well as you at the moment, and that will help to secure your future going forward. So I think for me, that is, and I'm just looking at the time now. I know there are questions and things like that to answer, but I think that is the most important thing I can say to young people about AI and the future of AI now in a short period of time. And I wouldn't want to go on for too long because I know there are questions and people want to come in and contribute and comment, etc. So I'll leave the floor to you, Lady Diana.
Okay. And please type your questions at the session so I can read it to Professor whilst he's on. I know you've got a lot of questions. Please type it there. And if you want to come on, I will let you just send me a request and I'll hop you on, please. If you have it, I'll let you come on. Whilst we wait for the questions, I've got about a couple of questions here. What advice will you give a 16 to 25-year-old who is unsure of how AI fits in their career path?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lady. And I think the most valuable advice that I can give, perhaps, is that that person, begin to look at, the sorts of roles, as I said, where AI is not where AI is not too prevalent at the moment and too effective, at the moment, right? Also, they should begin learning how to use AI, because that is going to be a huge factor going forward, right? Is not often when we talk about AI, the conversation is around, AI is taking over, taking jobs, etc. But a lot of people don't realize, don't often talk about the other half of the conversation, which is that we need to learn how to use AI. So if you can learn how to use AI and use it effectively in whatever it is that you're doing, then that means that you can get more work done effectively, right? And also in half the time, right? So there are AI tools for everything, right? Every sector that you can think about, there is some kind of AI tool that can help you, right? Do work faster. For the students that are on here, don't rely on AI too much for your assessments and your assignments and things like that. When they give you an essay, you go on ChatGPT and then you do it, and then you ask, you put the question there, and then it comes up, and then you copy and paste everything, and then you submit. What I'm finding, and I say this to my students all the time, is that doesn't work. That is not a good use of AI. Why? Because AI makes mistakes, and I've seen it many times. It is not correct 100% of the time. I have tested, platforms like ChatGPT, Abacus AI, and others with certain questions that I knew potentially that they may not get right, and every time they don't get those questions right. So AI is not perfect, right? It's learning from, it's a thing of machine learning, right? It's learning from, the information that is available on online. And not everything that is online is correct. Not everything that is online is accurate, right? Because we make mistakes. So basically, it's taking on the mistakes, right? That we're making so far as information is concerned, right? So be careful about AI. And when you even go on ChatGPT, if you go on ChatGPT right now, scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a disclaimer there that says that ChatGPT may make mistakes and that you should check the accuracy of information. So even the people that are behind the AI tools, they know that it's not a perfect tool, right? It may make mistakes. And so avoid just copying whatever you find on there. That is not how you use AI. There is a way to use AI such that you can, you can get the best out of it. Sometimes I run sessions on this. We don't have time for me to go into it, but there is a way to learn how to use AI. AI can make you a better student. It can make you a better professional. It can make you a better practitioner, whether you are in the legal field, whether you are in the health sector, whether you're an engineer, whatever area you are in, AI can help you to become a better, more effective practitioner. You just need to figure out how to use it properly. And there is a specific intentional way to do that. So that would be my advice, right? Learn how to use AI to make you better, to make you smarter, to make you more agile, and to make you more competitive as a practitioner on the market, right? Because the future belongs in part to those who will learn how to use AI and to use it better than others, right? So that would be my advice.
Professor, thank you so much for the explanation. You went even deeper, but I think we will have you here to come and guide us through how to use the AI properly, because I think we will need it. It will be handy. Because of time, you can't do that with us, because I think there will be drawings, there will be certain screen sharing and all that. Thank you so much. My lady here, Cornerstone Pamela. Hello, Pam. Thank you so much for passing through. I think she's working, but she joined us. Thank you so much. Her question is, what skills should young people prioritize today to remain competitive in an AI-driven world? I think you even mentioned a bit of it. Wow.
Yes. I mentioned a bit of of that. I think in addition to what I've said, obviously because Pam is asking about skills, right? So I think number one is IT skills. Yeah, you need those IT skills, because a lot of the things that AI can help you to do will be done through the frame of information technology, right? So for example, when you go on ChatGPT, it can teach you a lot of things. For example, it can teach you how to code, right? But the steps it would give you, right? All of those things have to be done by you using the necessary coding programs. For example, so if you don't know what coding is, and if you don't know how to use those coding programs, if you don't have those basic IT skills around that, then obviously you're not going to be able to use it. Sometimes you can ask it to actually code certain things for you. So you can ask it to write you a code language, for example, if you're designing or developing a program, and you're struggling, it can help you to write codes, whether in JavaScript, C++, or whatever, right? But if you don't have that basic IT knowledge, to understand how to take that code that it has written and link it up with whatever it is that you're doing in, on the different platforms, then of course you're not going to be able to use it as well. So I think those IT skills, tool up on your IT skills, right? Learn how to use different platforms, learn the basics of coding, right? Learn the basics of coding, and these days there are so many resources available. You only need to go online. You go on YouTube, you find a ton of stuff where they're teaching people how to do very, very basic things from an IT point of view. I give an example, right? Recently, I was brushing up on my skills for digital twin development.
Then we have a long way to go. We have a long.
Yeah, I was brushing up on my skills for digital twin development, right? And digital twins are amongst the most on trend digital technologies that exist today. So anyone who is on the call who is in the space of engineering or even health, right? You will understand what I mean by a digital twin. So a digital twin is a digital replica of a physical system, right? So you can take like any machine, even a car, for example, right? You can create a digital replica of the car, and then you can simulate certain conditions, right, within the car and outside of the car, to do what we call predictive modeling, to predict how the car will behave or how the car will perform in certain instances, right? So all the top sort of global businesses and firms are using this as a scenario and predictive modeling tool, and to have that capability, right? Now, in order for you to set up a digital twin, there are a number of systems that you can use, right? But you need to be able to, to code properly and to do all these other things. So recently I was sort of trying to brush up on my skills when it comes to digital twins, and I asked ChatGPT to write me a code, which was very, very helpful. And I asked it to show me how it had written that code, which it did, right? But I wouldn't have been able to make any sense of that if, I didn't understand the technology in the first place, right? You see, so you need to really, I think that for me, that is the number one thing. You need to brush up on your IT skills, right? Understand the latest technologies that exist right now in the world, such as digital twins and others, right? But understand how AI can help you to master those technologies and brush up on your skills in those areas.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of questions. Thank you, guys. I like how, so that I wouldn't even have to read mine. I love the questions coming. Okay. What skills should, okay. Dr. Palm again, she says, what opportunities will AI create for our youth entrepreneurs? Yeah.
Very, very good. So AI has the ability to, well, first and foremost, number one is research, right? And I'm sure, obviously, if you're hearing that word, you're thinking, well, research, what has research got to do with entrepreneurs? Entrepreneurs need to be skilled at research, because if you're an entrepreneur and you're not skilled at research, you're going to find that you're going to be going nowhere really fast, right?
Well, when you talk about research, is it like writing a research like we all know, or
within a lot of people, particularly within Ghanaian circles, I don't know about other countries, but within Ghanaian circles, when you talk about research, people think about, it's just writing and I have to do a report, etc. No, research is just simply finding out information. That's it. That's what research is. Finding out information to be able to identify gaps. That's the purpose of research, right? You want to find out what exists in a particular area and what does not exist in that area, so that you can address the gap. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're in a particular market, you need to find out what is happening in that market. Who are the main players? What kind of services are they providing, right? And in addition to that, what are the kinds of services that people are looking for that are not yet being provided, right? And is there a way in which consumers and customers want certain services to be provided that is not being provided, right? And so if you are able to do the research, understand the market, be able to identify the gap, then it means that you can come up with a service that actually meets the needs that people are looking for. That is a far better approach to entrepreneurship than sort of, saying, I want to bake cake because, I just feel like it, right? and so I'm going to do that. No, you have to be more intentional, right, about how you do. Maybe you have a talent of baking cakes. That's very good, right? But that is not enough to help you get to where you want to go in your business. You need to be able, and this is why companies invest thousands, sometimes millions of pounds in market research, right? They hire external people to do it for them. Now, AI is very, very good at this, right? AI can, especially if you're, doing an entrepreneur in a particular area that is, common and well known. AI can help you, right? Identify gaps. It can help you with product ideas, product design, right? Okay. It can also support you with identifying, right, the key things that you need to identify as an entrepreneur to be able to meet the market demands and to be able to meet the demands of consumers, right, in a particular area. So that for me, as an, if you ask me a question around, what advice do I have for entrepreneurs around AI, this is what I would say, right? Because the fact of the matter is that, people will spend their money only on things that they feel meets their needs. If you don't know what those needs are, how are you going to get their money? Right. So that's what I would say.
This is an eye-opening. Dr. Pam, thank you for asking this question, because this is really good, especially for our entrepreneurs. You don't just get up and today I've learned that you don't just get up. Everybody is doing and you're also doing. You are selling Meku and you're also selling Meku. You have to look at the gaps where they are lacking, then you can produce it. The need of the people. That's what the words. I'm borrowing the words from the professor. You have to research, and just see a book. Just research the market, the area that you are in, so that you will know what they need in order for you to be marketable. We've got Mr. Ashti. Do you have concerns about AI? And if you do, some CIOs are passionate about how dangerous it is. Wait, your number to go for you.
Thank you very much for the question, Ashadi. Yes, so I have concerns about AI. My first concern is around the sustainability of AI, right? So if you look at how we are looking for AI to be a huge part of our society and to help revolutionize the way we live, right, is going to require a lot of resources. So for example, here in the UK, the government is talking about AI being really injected into every aspect of our public services. So from the NHS, which is healthcare, to education, right? The education bit is so important because of the metaverse, which is being developed by Mark Zuckerberg, who is the owner of Meta, which owns Facebook, which also owns Instagram and WhatsApp. Now, the metaverse is going to be critical because it's going to be an area where you can have access to any services across the world. So if, let's say, maybe you are, the top and the foremost heart surgeon in the world, and you live in Ghana, for example, right? Through the metaverse, you can have consultations in a very meaningful way with a patient who is in India, for example, right? Because they will have the headset. The metaverse is virtual reality, right? Okay. So there are things that you'll be able to do in there that you'll not be able to do if you had a Teams call, right? And there are certain assessments that you'll be able to make, right? Okay. As a cardiologist, right? That you would not be able to make if you were just sort of having a chat with them on Teams. So the metaverse is another level, right? Now, in order for all of this to be achieved on a sort of a very high scale, we need data sensors. So AI runs on what we call data centers. So the data centers, they're pretty much big warehouses where you've got servers, right? So if you think about the way I explain this to my students is I often say, think about the human body, right? You've got different parts of the human body, but right, everything is controlled by your brain because your brain has the information. Yeah. So AI feeds on information that already exists, and then it performs these analytical processes to analyze that information and produce results. Right. Okay. Yeah. That's a function of the brain. Yeah. Okay. Right. The servers in an AI system, right, is the brain of the AI. Right. So that's where all the thinking is being done. Right. And in order for us to have AI perform at the capacity and the scale that we're looking at, we need to have lots and lots and lots and lots of these data centers scattered all through the country, right? Lots of them. Now, the problem with the data centers is that because the computing activity is so high, they get hot very easily and quickly. And so we need to cool them down with water. Yeah. So that's a resource that we need. At the moment, if you look at, and I'm using the UK as an example, if you look at how the government in the UK wants to introduce AI into the delivery of public services, we're going to need more water. We're going to need twice as much water as we have now in the UK to be able to do that, right? In order to have those data centers, right? In addition to that, the data centers also take up a lot of energy, electricity, because it's rows and rows and rows and rows of servers, and you need multiple data centers, right? And if you look at our energy in the UK at the moment, of course we have enough energy. We don't have any power rationing issues, etc., etc. But energy is expensive, right? And if we're going to have more energy, right, to be able to meet the needs of these data centers, the question is, where are those? Where's that energy going to come from? How much is it going to cost? And how much is it going to cost us, therefore, to use the AI systems that we need, right? So you can see the cost implications filtering all the way through, right? So there is a discussion going on in the world around at the moment around how we can make AI itself more sustainable, because it's not sustainable, at the current level, right? Because it's going to take up lots of water that we need for homes and for businesses, right? And it's going to suck up a lot of energy that we don't have at a very high cost, right? So for me, that is the biggest concern by far. And that is also the reason why it's going to take longer for AI, right, to come into certain areas, because the more professional the area that you want to introduce AI into, the more data centers you will need, right? Okay, so ChatGPT, etc., they don't need that much energy and water. They don't need that much sort of, and by energy and water, I mean the data centers. They can run on existing data centers. If you want to introduce AI into health and engineering and schools, for example, right, that requires much higher computing capacity, right? Okay, yeah, because those are much complex tasks than asking ChatGPT to write you a letter or to do your calendar or whatever it is, right? So the more complex the task, the higher the computation, and the higher the computation, the more the data centers. The more the data centers, the more energy, the more water that you need to cool those data centers down. And so because we need to figure out where we're going to get the energy from, right? We need to increase our renewable energy capacity, but also because we need to increase our water capture, right, from rainfall, etc., to be able to have the water to meet the needs of AI. It's going to be a slow march for AI to get into those sort of professional areas, which is why I'm always saying to young people, look, go for the professional jobs. Yeah, because it's a slow march for AI to be introduced on a wide scale at that level because of the resource implications, right? So go for those jobs, upskill yourself to get to those places now. So for me, the sustainability element is my biggest concern.
Wow. Hey, we are getting this knowledge for free. Hey, won't you message somebody to come on? Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Lai. So this professional, before I go to the next questions, is there any 5 or 2? Because someone is asking, I know of nursing, the professional jobs,
Yeah.
Is there can you mention few so that
So of course,
how just few.
yeah, exactly. Just a few. So I've already talked about health. So doctors, nurses, right? Okay. So if you're a nurse, whatever nurse you are, if you're a doctor, whatever doctor you are in the health field, that's fine. Law, right? Okay. With law, you have to be aiming for the, solicitor, barrister, judge, right? Okay. Because AI will not be touching those jobs anytime in the future. Even if that will happen, from our own research, we surmise it will be much later in this century, towards the 22nd century, where that would happen. And then engineering, right, is another area as well. The digital economy is another area. So if you are someone who you are into coding, you're into doing and creating digital programs, right? Okay, yeah, that is an excellent area to be in, because whereas AI at the moment can write different codes, it can't write entire programs on its own. It will get there eventually, but at the moment it's not there yet. So I would highlight that area as well as one of the there are others, but I'll stop there. I think those are the well-known ones.
You've given us a lot of questions, so your time. I'm just wondering. Okay, our lady, she says, how do you think AI is going to change medicine? Not sure if you have heard of any research.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on at the moment with AI in medicine, particularly in America, but also in China as well, where they're using AI in a supporting capacity. And by that I mean, and what I'm about to talk about is being done on a trial basis at the moment. Yeah. So a doctor makes a diagnosis, and the AI is there to double check that diagnosis and to offer a sort of a perspective, if there is one, that the doctor might not have considered yet, taking into account the patient's case. So we've often heard the phrase, "Oh, go and seek a second opinion." Well, AI is there now to give that second opinion, and they are trialing this in different areas. It's not being done on a wide scale, right? But this is something that is being trialed. So it's AI's use in medicine is mainly being focused at the consultation level to support consultations, to support diagnosis, particularly, especially in cancer cases, to support diagnosis and to support treatment and treatment options, particularly in cancer cases. So that's where they're trialing it at the moment. The Chinese are a bit further along than the Americans, and the UK is slightly behind both of them. I would, if you're in the medical field, I would look to what they're doing in Asia at the moment, for best practices, because they're much further forward than the Americans are currently. But that's what's happening with medicine. That's how AI is being used. Of course, if it's successful, because keep in mind there are a lot of ethical and legal considerations around this. So if you use AI to do a diagnosis and the diagnosis is wrong, right? Who is legally responsible from a medical negligence point of view? Is it the doctor or is it the AI? And if you say the answer is the AI, well, good luck suing the AI in court, because it's not a legal personality, right? It's not a person. You can't take artificial intelligence to court, because it's a thing. It's not. Obviously we would say it's an inanimate thing, right? It doesn't have any legal personality. So there are lots of ethical considerations and legal considerations around this. And so because of that, it's being rolled out in stages. whilst the policy frameworks for this are being designed. The UK recently had an AI policy summit. I think it was earlier this year, to start putting the necessary policies in place to determine a lot of this stuff. And that will continue, but if you're in the medical field, that would be my answer. And I would say look to Asia to see what they're doing there, because they are much further forward.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think Doctor is very happy with her answer. All right. There's a lady here called Jemima. She says, do you think a child of 9 years can start using GPT chat?
Yes, I would say yes. In some countries, they are introducing AI to kids much younger than 9 years. So in South Korea, for example, you would see that in Japan they are doing it in a limited way as well. But you've got to do it in the right way. So it's not just about sort of just saying to the child, look, this is it, go and have a play. No, you've got to direct the child. So it's about introducing the child to ChatGPT and having the child understand that, look, this is a resource and a tool that you can use to learn, right? That you can use to explore different ideas, that you can use to do research, that you can use to understand how the world works, effectively, right? What I would caution against is an approach that teaches the child wrongly, in my view, that ChatGPT will always do the thinking for them. Because in many cases, the thinking of ChatGPT is wrong. In many cases, it doesn't go as deep as it should, right? ChatGPT gives you a lot of surface level stuff. I don't know if people here have noticed, but it doesn't, very often it doesn't go into depth until you probe it and you push it further, right? It gives you a lot of surface. And so that's why when I see a lot of people, I see people who submit assignments and they copy something of ChatGPT, or they do a presentation, copy something of ChatGPT, I can tell immediately. Because it sounds good and it looks good, but it doesn't have depth. The substance to it is very minimal. So it's, again, comes down to how you use AI, and that's one of the ways. It's AI is support. It is not the main thing, right? At this moment, where it is support, right? So you have to have an understanding of the knowledge, the idea, what you want to do, and have a depth to that. And then AI will support you to get it right. Yeah, it will support you to sort of shape the thoughts that you already have in a way that is presentable, in a way that is agile, and in a way that helps you to consider other factors that you may not initially have thought about. Yeah. So I would say, yes, introduce the child to AI, but do it in that way, right? Let them understand that it is a supportive tool, not the main tool. It is not supposed to replace their own thinking.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Nyamin Shao. Ashti, how should we navigate some of the AI bases? Example, when using to analyze job applications. Ashti are asking all the professor questions. So
yeah. So AI has biases because it is learning from us, right? Over the last 50 years, all machine learning systems that we have developed as human beings have had.
When you are happy to go, please let us know, because I know you have an appointment. But
yes,
I'll come in a lot.
Yes, I'll take a couple more questions, and then we'll have to wrap up. But all machine learning systems have biases because basically they are learning from us. We are the model. that they are learning from. And so they would pick up the biases that we have, and then they would regenerate the same thing. So when it comes to job applications, there are some AI tools where the developers have attempted to develop them so that they don't have the same biases that human beings have. But of course, that's not a guarantee. So my answer to the question is, look, there is no way of avoiding biases in AI because they're learning from us. However, when you're doing job applications, do not rely entirely on AI, to sort of do a short list and things like that, right? You have an understanding, okay, of the kind of person that you're looking for, right? And I get it. Sometimes you can have a job advert where you advertise a position and 1,000 people apply. Yeah, let me just use that as an example, right? And of course, in those instances, you can't go through every application. So what I often advise HR professionals is have a filtration system, right? Okay, so you can either filter by CV or you filter by by personal statement. So usually there are these filtration softwares where you put in keywords. So you say, okay, give me all of the applications that have these keywords in them. So these are keywords that are related to the job. So the rationale or the thinking is that if that person has that keyword in their CV or their personal statement, then it means that they are most likely have the experience you're looking for, right? And this is another tip for us young people, right? When you are applying for a job, make sure you use the necessary or the relevant keywords in your CV, right? And in your personal statement, because if your documents are pulled through these filters, the AI system, if it's filtering, won't pick your CV if certain keywords are not in there, because it will think that you don't have the experience. But maybe you do have the experience, but you're not using the right words. So maybe that's something to discuss for another session. In terms of how you do, and this is a real thing, right? I've seen this in real life, and obviously we've worked with companies to try and help them, to get this right. So have a filtration system. Once it narrows things down for you. You would then obviously go through them at that point yourself, because obviously once it's done a short list for you, you can then do a short list yourself and narrow the candidates down to a 2 or 3 or however you want to interview. And so that is my experience in terms of the sort of the work that we've done with HR professionals around sort of the use of AI systems and how they can avoid biases. You have to the best way to do that is to not rely on the AI system entirely. Okay, allow it to do some of the work, right, to give you a short list, but then you have to do some of the work as well. And again, like I said, for young people on here, here's a tip for you: use the right keywords in your CV, your personal statement. Very, very important, because that will ensure that you get past that first filter. And then hopefully you can progress or proceed into interview. I've seen many cases where I've come across a young person where they say, oh, I've looked for jobs all over. And I say to them, look, bring your CV. And I look at their CV, I look at the job they're applying for, and I tell them, no wonder, because when I look at your CV, you're missing a lot of keywords here. That has keywords that have been used in the job description, by the way, right? So it's not like you have to go and think about it, right? It's there, it's right in front of you, right? Okay, so you just need to be able to identify, right, okay, those keywords, and make sure that your CV and your personal statement bears those keywords, and your experience is therefore linked to the job description. And I've seen on many occasions young people where because of that they've not been able to get a job, and once they've changed that, they've been able to get a job, right? So it's that sort of thing in that way.
Wow. Thank you so much. I think this is going a long way to help so many people, Professor. Thank you so much. And Ash, thank you so much for asking these questions for most of our youth, because with this job description and the keywords I'm happy that you hit on that. I'm so happy that you hit on that, because it's going to really help the youth when, applying for jobs. Dr. Pam, thank you so much for your questions today. I really appreciate you. Her question is, my concern is pharmaceutical companies will try to cut corners in order to get FDA approval with AI. That's a concern.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Pam, for that question. I think it's a valid concern. And I think really the answer is in the I would say, look, it depends on the FDA that you're dealing with, and their particular processes, right? The FDA in the US has a robust process for drug approvals, right, from pharmaceutical companies, and of course, in other parts of the world, like in the UK, but particularly in Europe, in the European Union, they have an even more robust, more stringent process for getting approval. Where the process is robust and stringent, it will be very difficult for companies to use AI, to get the right sort of words and the right narratives and stories into their sort of applications, because the substance of the results of the drugs themselves and sort of the tests that are required by the FDA approval itself will highlight the true facts of the matter, right? So it is a concern, but I think the answer really is in strengthening the approval process, right? There are some countries where you would seek FDA approval for something, and they would just take your application at face value, right? They would take things as you have put them. So if you say, "Oh, this drug does this," blah 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 blah, they wouldn't necessarily dig deeper to try and ascertain, do their own test to ascertain whether what you're saying is true or not. And I think in countries where their processes are more robust, more in-depth, it's much more difficult to use AI to be able to do that. So yeah, I would say it's a valid concern, but hopefully approvals are strengthened, especially in this environment where AI is very commonly used to meet the challenge, right? The approval systems are strengthened to meet the challenge of someone getting their sort of a drug that doesn't work through the net because they use AI to sort of put in a strong application.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor. I have one question to ask before. Okay. All right. Prof, let me ask my last question, then we can call it a day. How can youth balance tech skills with soft skills to stay adaptable in the changing world?
Yeah, it's a very very good question. Your tech skills, and I think you said soft skills, right?
The tech
Yeah.
and the soft skills. Good.
Yeah. It's a very good question, and I think the answer for everybody will be different, because everybody will be in different places on both skills. Some people will be very very well adept with their sort of their tech skills as opposed to the soft skills, and others will not. So it's difficult for me to provide a sort of a one size fits all answer. However, what I would say is you have to look at where you are. Well, number one, look at what you're doing. What are you looking to do? That's the first question, right? Think of yourself in the next 5 years. Where do you see yourself? Right? In the next 5 years, where do you see yourself? 5 years is not far away. right? We're now in what, 2025. We all remember where we were in 2020, right? It's not that long ago, right? It really isn't, not that long ago. And, you know, if let's say maybe you are 35 years old, you were 30 just yesterday, and the day before that you were 25, right? It really isn't that long ago. So think of where you want to be in 5 years, because it's really close, and ask yourself, what kind of skills do I need to be able to get there, right? And this is this is what we would call a systems approach, right, to your own career planning, your own career development, right? It's not about, you know, sort of going with the flow, or not necessarily about, well, let's see what happens. You have to be more intentional than that, right? Success comes because people are intentional. It doesn't just drop out of the sky, right? And every successful person will tell you that it's two things, right? Okay. The first is, of course, by the grace of God. But the second thing is intentionality, planning, right? Seizing opportunities, identifying opportunities, right? Okay. Being able to position yourself, having the right skills to be able to take advantage of an opportunity, not if it presents itself, but when it presents itself, because the opportunities will come, right? The opportunities will come. And just to give you an example, look, everybody here on the platform went to school. You went to primary school, you went to secondary school, you went to university, then you came out, you got a qualification. Why did you do all that? The only reason why you did all that was to give yourself the right skills to be able to present yourself, right? Yeah, at the time when a job opportunity came your way. That's why you did all that schooling, right? So it's in doing all of that, you weren't thinking, oh, you know, man, if a job opportunity comes, I want to be able to take it. No, you expected that at the end of your qualifications there would be a job opportunity, and you would have to apply for a job. So you needed to get your skills right. So when it comes to opportunities, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because opportunities will always come, especially to children of God. He will always make a way, right? So you have to be able to skill yourself up, tool yourself up, right, whilst you are waiting for those opportunities. So, for example, if you want to work with an international organization, right? Let's say maybe you are in health. You want to work with the World Health Organization, right? Yeah. You expect that you will have an opportunity to do that at some point in the future. The idea is not to wait until the opportunity comes and then to start thinking, oh, okay, what do I need to do? Blah, blah. No, right? One of the things you could do right now is go on their website, find out what are some of the people that they are looking for. What is some of the experience that they're looking for, right? Usually you would find that, oh, okay, they're looking for someone that has worked in national circles here and there, done different bits of work, etc., etc. In so and so places, has A, B, C, and D experience. Okay, now that you found that out in terms of the information, the next question is, what do I need to do to get those skills, right? Where do I need to position myself? So you need to start taking on the necessary opportunities in terms of, even in your work. Maybe they say, oh, we need someone to go to this particular place and do this particular bit of work, but we don't have any budget to pay you extra, right? And you will sit down and say, oh, if they don't pay me, I won't go. You are missing out, because guess what? That extra work that you're doing will give you an experience, right, that will position you well to take an advantage of an opportunity for a higher paying job in the future. It is not wasted. Nothing we do is wasted. Nothing we do is wasted. So don't make the calculation, a short-term calculation, to say that I'm not going to take on the opportunities that will give me the experiences that I need and the skills that I need to be able to get a better job in the future, because I'm not paid for it. Not everything you do has to be paid for, because there are some things that you do, right, which give you more benefit than whatever you're being paid for in the day job. And I can give you several examples of that, right? There are things that I have done that I never got paid for, which I was able to reference in my CV, right? which opened the door by the grace of God for me to get a better job. It's happened to me time and time and time again. I can give you countless examples, right, of that sort of thing, right? So don't think that whatever you're doing is wasted. No, it's not wasted. You're gaining skills, you're gaining experience, you're gaining knowledge. These things are valuable, right? Remember that we live in a system that values people not for what they can do with their arms, but what they do with their minds, right? So that is the kind of system that we live in. And so the knowledge, the experience, the skills that you're getting, right? These are the essential things. So I would say, look, think about where you want to be in the next 5 years. Find out what skills you need, right? So let's say if you want to work with the World Health Organization, what kind of experiences are they looking for in that organization? Once you've identified that, right, come up with a list, do some research, right? Find and come up with a list of experiences, right, that will allow you to get those skills, right? And then go for them, right? Okay, some of them you will be paid for, others you may not be paid for, but guess what? You have a plan, right? And God is going to help you to achieve that plan. So even if you're not paid for it, right, okay, in the short term, look towards the long term and how you're building yourself up, right? And so that would be my answer. We need to have a systems approach, right? A more comprehensive approach to how we view our lives, ourselves, our career development, and how all of this works out. So that would be my advice.
I'm just hearing. I'm just emotional with your answer. I'm so emotional. I don't know why, because it's like you touching, even though you are explaining, with the knowledge that you have, it's backed with so much wisdom, and we can't get this anywhere. And I'm so happy that you've given us your time just for free, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And guys, I don't know. Any question? God bless you so much, Pastor Lion.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you, man of God. Okay, Miss Happy. Hello. Okay. All right. So thank you so much for joining us today. And I know that you have been blessed. I have been blessed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to everyone. God bless everybody. And take care and stay blessed.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Watch Diana's Diary. Yeah, I wanted you to just say something about Diana's Diary. I know you encouraged me when you saw me at church. You were like, this will go far. Why should somebody watch Diana's Diary?
Well, it's for moments like this, right? Moments when you are encouraged. Moments when you receive information, you receive knowledge. So I believe Diana's Diary is a well-needed program to help build young people up, to help to accelerate the achievements of young people, progress them towards their destinies. And so, I think Diana's Diary will go far. And thank you for making yourself available and, taking your time clearly to be able to put this together.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you, everyone. Dr.
Okay, everyone. Bye.